Okay. Greetings, brothers and sisters. So, this to me is going to be an epic video because I have a great comment I want to, it's just worth just, diving into. And someone did a review of my channel on Reddit, and that's funny. And I want to get into that. But the first part was, I had these conversations about invalid traffic, which wasn't applied to my channel, but the effects were. And I had these two conversations with these AI bots. The first AI bot was named Cloud, and Cloud, I say, this Cloud says all this stuff here. Cloud says, please know that the revenue depends on ad formats that run on your videos of different ad formats, all these things. CPNs, which you could, all these things that he said, right? And things that I know. And they're stealing my revenue. They're running ads and they're not paying me for those ads the same way they used to. And so they're either charging, giving me less of a percentage or whatever they're doing. I'm making 70% of what I used to, right? And I haven't changed a thing. This is a policy they've done, and they're doing it to all these other people. And so, so I say this here. I know all this. My channel is making about 70% of what it used to. And this election, which has always been my best years, it's an election year, which has always been my best years. My viewers are seeing ads, so why has the revenue shrunk so much in the past 2 years? And Cloud says this. This is what I wanted to focus on. Please know that we want your channel to succeed as much as you do. And, that's bad. Just an absolute lie. And, I'll explain more in a bit. I got to switch over to a voiceover. I'll go through it. Detail how that's a lie. So then I talked to a bot named Margaret. Revenue may fluctuate at different times of the year. For example, these are all things in the holiday season, all things that I said, right? That around Christmas time and the winter months, there's a huge uptick. Your videos January and February tend to be lighter months, right? This is stuff I already say. I've talked about to you guys for years. So this, because I do this as a job, I know this. To do a deep dive, your revenue performance, take a look into your analytics, expand the thing. So she wants me to go, and I'm saying she, but it's a bot, right? Wants me to go in and do a deep dive into my analytics to figure out why YouTube's screwing me out of money, right? But then here is the other thing here. So I say, I need an answer from you at the end of why the YouTube is suppressing my revenue. Don't put this back on me. YouTube is doing something different, so I am not making as much money. What is it? And Margaret says, please understand that YouTube has no intention to decrease your revenue. This is the same kind of thing, right? Just an out-and-out lie. They have no intention to decrease my revenue, but that's what they're doing to not just me, but other people. So you're lying, right? You're just flat out lying as a bot, but it's not lying because they're given these lines, right? They're just programs. They're not real people. They're not people with hearts and consciousness and, critical thinking skills. They talk all about this, how AI is learning, but they're just learning whatever their crap that they're given, garbage in, garbage out. This is the garbage that YouTube tells their bots, and it's the garbage the bots will tell you, and there's no reference point for some common ground of reality, because I know from my experience YouTube is intentionally decreasing my revenue. I mean, there's no other explanation for it. And they've done it to all these people, right, they're told this, this scam. Let me move over to a voiceover here. So let me just show you this. So I put this in a Google search just so I would have the text here, so I didn't have to, so I could come back and read this later on in the video, which you'll hear me read it. This is where I'm, because I want to say it verbatim. Please know, Cloud, please know that we want your channel to succeed as much as you do. And then this is what they recommended. This just came up here, right? How fast you can build a successful YouTube channel. Mr. Beats talks about how to grow your views. 7 sides your YouTube channel will be successful. How to start a YouTube channel with your phone. This one, I put in, please understand that YouTube has no interest to decrease your revenue. I lost 9% of my YouTube ad revenue, YouTube monetization invalid bug, revenue loss, and then these other things, right? How to make money on YouTube without making videos, like all this kind of stuff, right? But this is right here. This is a response where YouTube took away 90% of this guy's revenue, and this invalid traffic bug, which is just a scam, a way to steal people's money, because they're not getting invalid traffic. It's something that the bot detects, something that they consider invalid traffic. The people aren't doing anything themselves, and then they get their revenue stolen from them, right? So let me put this into context, right? So this is, the modern day 1984, dystopian shit right here, right? This is dystopian shit, right? And so you're talking to a bot. I'm talking to a bot named Cloud, and I've know all about the stuff that the bot is saying to me because I lived it, right? But what I don't have access to is what YouTube's doing. I don't know how their algorithms and bots work. I mean, I'm not a computer person. I'm not a computer language person. I don't know how they've done it. Like, I don't know how they've scammed me out of money and these other people. But I know they have, right? Because it was just like all these other people, and I showed people in the these various people showed graphics where they're in the analytics program where they're there's these a chart, and then the stuff just it tanks, where the chart is at a certain level forever, ups and downs, but it's at a certainly a certain level, and then all of a sudden it plummets and it's dropped by 70%, and it just stays there. It happened to me and all these other people where I was looking at what I was making on an average day. I'd make an hour-long video. If I make an hour 20 video, it'd be a little bit more. I got more views, whatever it might be. There'd be peaks and valleys, but there was a consistent income stream. And I'd be making whatever it was, $100 a day, $90 a day, $80 a day, $120 a day some days, right? Averaging around $100 a day. And then all of a sudden, it was like $20 or $30 a day. And it was the same videos. Everything was else the same. Like, everything I was doing was the same. I was getting about the same amount of views and things like this, right? And all of a sudden, the revenue drops significantly. And then every once in a while, it drops more. And, you notice this, like, when there's seasonal things. And so, in February and January, all these companies have their ad buys. They have their budget for the year, their ad revenue. They want to put out ads out there for their businesses, right? And they have their YouTube ad budget, and they're going to spend the majority of that in October, November, December. And when it's a political year, there's $1 billion of ad revenue that's mostly going out on social media. I made the most amount of money, like almost, like $20,000 more than I normally would make, something crazy like that, in 2020. And I had like my best month in December of that year. And so then January rolled around, and, it went down by a significant amount, but that was just expected, right? And so, like, all of those things were, there was a bumper crop that year because there was that kind of that year. The next year wasn't as good. Those are all things that I expect and I see. It's just normal. But then there was a significant drop that happened sometime in 2023, where YouTube was just not paying me as much for the same amount of views, same amount of ads, same amount of everything. I asked my viewers; they said they were still seeing ads. Now, my son had told me that YouTube was no longer a preferred destination for ads. Of course, TikTok has taken off. They're now having to split the revenue with TikTok, and so there could be that they have less ads, they have less money, and things like that. But they should be transparent and tell us that, right? Like, this is why we don't have as much money. Like, that's what companies have to do, but they still want us cranking out videos and making whatever money for them is it is whatever it is. Or they've realized, one of the problems with YouTube is the bandwidth issue, where they have to, they have these servers that have to store all these videos. And there's a lot of crappy, worthless videos. people's videos that their relatives won't even freaking watch, right? Videos that people's relatives won't even look at because they suck. And so those videos are just taking up, resources and contributing nothing to the platform because it's not drawing anybody in and there's no ads being run and no one's watching them. And so YouTube has to pay for all that. And YouTube hasn't made money. I think there's only been a couple of years where they actually made money. I think almost every year they're in a loss. Now it's a great platform because they have lots of people on it, but they've tried to figure a way to monetize it just like anything else. And so the only thing for Google that's making money is Google search, right? Not Google ad, but Google search. But their ad program sucks, and I've documented this before. They don't give customers what they want, and they've lost control of their AI bots. And if a customer says, I want to run, like for me, I wanted to run ads on specific videos, specific channels that my own viewers recommended to me. And they say they couldn't do that because it was all based on machine learning. So I'm talking to a guy who's completely impotent, limp-dicked. He can't do anything because he works for these AI bot overlords. And you human beings like the customer or the guy I was working with can give suggestions to their machine learning, as they call it. But the machine learning eventually comes around to doing whatever, right? And so I know these things. So I've dealt with this stuff as a YouTube creator, but also as when I tried to run ads because YouTube was not doing what it used to do, right? And so there's information they could share, but these statements are completely false. Because let me go back to the first statement here. And so when this AI bot named Cloud says, please know that we want your channel to succeed as much as you do. Well, they don't want my channel to succeed at all. I mean, maybe they want it on their terms, but they've done lots of things to stop me from succeeding, right? They stopped my channel from succeeding. And so when it was a level playing field, my channel was getting 100 new subscribers a day. I was, topping 100,000 subscribers, and I was growing, and, YouTube was recommending my videos to truthers and then to other people, sheeple. And so my videos were going out there, and people were watching them and finding them and liking them. I was getting videos regularly of 200,000 views and more. I had a couple of videos over 1 million views. And YouTube was, again, an equal playing field, right? And so, they had already started to implement some strategies to minimize people in the truth community, but also independent people that they couldn't control. It's not just truthers, but truthers were a part of it, right? So that was back in 2016, the term fake news came out. And YouTube, the big ad apocalypse happened, where there was a, kind of fake, goofy truther video that caused some problem in England. And McDonald's and Walmart and all these big advertising agencies said they weren't going to advertise because ads were shown on that video, and they made a big deal about it, said, until you guys clean up your conspiracy theorist, anti-establishment videos, we're not going to put our ads on your videos to run at on those channels. So YouTube immediately started to, and that was all fake and staged and whatever. And so YouTube immediately started to change their policies to hide channels like mine. It became a term known as shadow banning. And so if you're shadow banning somebody, like shadow banning isn't as much as I do. We please know that we want your channel to succeed as much as you do. Well, I wouldn't shadow ban my own channel. No, I want my channel not shadow banned. So no, you don't want it to succeed as much as I do, right? Please know we want your channel to succeed as much as you do. And then I started to find out from my viewers they were being unsubscribed regularly. Now, some of that had to do with the fact that I make lots of content, which again, YouTube should be happy about. I make content every day. But my viewers who like to watch all of my content couldn't keep up. And so when they didn't watch the content, YouTube's algorithms would say, all right, let's not notify these people anymore. And eventually would unsubscribe them because they weren't watching every second of content I put out. They would think, oh, these people lost interest in your channel. But they also went over the top with truther channels, and they would unsubscribe people and do these other things, right? Do all this kind of stuff, which would undermine the people who wanted to see my content's ability to do so. And then they came up with this idea of authoritarian support for authoritarian channels, and they use the word authoritarian, authoritative channels, CNN and MSNBC and Fox. And so they started to push that, right? And that all happened. We all know that happened. And that, again, wasn't wanting my channel to succeed as much as I do, because they were given preference to channels that my viewers and most people don't want to see. They can go to CNN and watch crappy CNN. They can go to YouTube TV and watch CNN. They can watch CNN on cable news, or they can go to the airport and watch frickin' CNN. People don't watch CNN. When CNN had their own CNN Plus, they lost, was it $300 million on it or something like that? I mean, it was a complete disaster. They were getting 4,000 views on, whatever it was. Less than that. They were getting like under 1,000 views on some of the crap they were putting out. Nobody wanted CNN Plus. CNN couldn't compete on social media. And so they gamed the system, so CNN and MSNBC and Fox and all these other stuff, crap like The View and all these, that people didn't want to watch on the internet, and they pushed it on everybody, and then they hid our channels. Like they pushed forward CNN. And then, so this is not, please know, cloud. Please know that we want your channel to succeed as much as you do. No, you don't. Like, that's still an out-and-out lie because of all the things I've just said. And so they found ways to demonetize our videos, and then they found bogus ways to give community guideline strikes when we would talk about things when we were right and the establishment was wrong. Medical misinformation, which I just received a strike and a repeal, this video that I just put out today, is it turned out to be, again, most of the things that they gave community guideline strikes turned out to be wrong on every level. Things that was promised by the mainstream community, whatever it was, right? All these things. And so there's all these community guideline strikes that are gaming the system so that we can't produce content, we can't speak freely, and that other, platforms or other, mainstream media can say things and carry the lies forward. And so they've gamed the system that way. And so demonetization of videos is also, if you look at the way they demonetize videos, the way that videos have to be monetized, we have to jump through all kinds of hoops to produce truthful content. Like if you speak the truth, they will shadow ban they will hide your channel. They will minimize they'll demonetize it. They'll give you community guideline strikes. They'll promote other channels ahead of yours, and they won't recommend your channels to new people, which is, why I had to run ads in the first place. Like then I had to go to YouTube and pay them to do what they used to do for free when my channel was growing and they were putting my channel and promoting it, right? And not promoting my channel as much as a celebrity's channel. I was still not getting the same kind of treatment, but at least they were doing it to some extent, right? But they stopped doing all that stuff, and they started doing the opposite. So they hid the channel. They would unsubscribe people who did want to see the channel. And when people search for content like mine, even when they search for Pockets of the Future, they wouldn't find my channel. I'm the person who coined the term Pockets of the Future. I made Pockets of the Future a phrase, and when you search Pockets of the Future, I even did it on the browser Brave, and it didn't come up with I should be first. My YouTube channel should be the first recommended. When somebody searches Pockets of the Future, that's what they're looking for. The majority of people looking for Pockets of the Future. Other people have now co-opted that phrase, but the first thing that you should get is my videos. But there's a person who's ripped off like 5 of my videos and has a Pockets of the Future, some kind of, on some kind of app. And that's like oftentimes the first thing that comes up for people. People have searched my name, Pockets of the Future, and they can't even find it. And then when you search content, truther content, if you search the term truther, it's all anti-truther stuff, right? So no cloud. Please know that we want your channel to succeed as much as you do. That is a lie. You don't want my channel to succeed at all because you've warped the system. You've rigged the system against me and my channel. And people like me. And not just truthers, but other people. And now they have this, invalid views or whatever it is, invalid, whatever it was called, invalid traffic. And that's just another scam, another way for them to take people's money. And so you've decreased people's money by 70%. And people who have jobs who think they're going to get paid, it's like, somebody saying, that you're making $10 an hour and you get your paycheck and you find out you're making $3. And they don't even tell you, oh, you're going to make $3 an hour instead of 10. We're about to do this. They didn't make a public announcement. Hey, we're going to start taking people's money and you're not going to get paid as much for the same amount of work. And so that's what they've done to everybody, right? And so to follow that up, they have this other bot come out and say, please understand we have no intention to decrease your revenue. Like, yeah, you can say that, but that's a lie. You have done it in every possible way. The way that your policies have changed to decrease my channel and channel like mine. I mean, there's no more truther channels on YouTube, and the ones that are demonetized, right? And we can't talk about things we want to talk about. We have to, and retroactively, like if you talked about, like, say, vaccines 3 years ago, 5 years ago, they would go give you a community guideline strike for something you said 5 years ago, even though the policy has just recently changed, right? And so, like, that's not cool, right? That's not, to retroactively punish people for things that were completely legal and supported by YouTube and say, all right, I don't care if you made this mistake 7 years ago. I understand if you change your community guidelines now and we put out something. Yeah, well, that's, I understand YouTube has rules and things like that, but retroactively punishing people. And so these are all ways you've decreased our revenue. Shadow banning us, not notifying viewers, hiding our stuff on search. And so even if we advertise, they wouldn't advertise on truther channels because they don't even acknowledge that this genre exists. And the truther, the truther videos were videos that actually were one of the videos, some of the videos, the genre that built YouTube in the first place, right? And so this is what you're doing, right? This is the BS that you're pushing. Like, this is what your bots are saying. And again, this is garbage in, garbage out. Please understand that YouTube has no intention to decrease your revenue. That's an out-and-out lie because you've done it, right? If you did it, you had an intention to do it. I didn't want you to decrease it by 70%, right? And all these people who have, huge drops in revenue, and YouTube's just stealing their money. And so, like, this is, this dystopian situation where bots are saying things like this, where you can't get a human response, somebody with a heart, a soul, and a conscience, and empathy, and some, individual that's on there who works for YouTube and sees what they're doing, and a whistleblower who leaks information on how YouTube's screwing people, and there's some sort of class action lawsuit because there's actually a criminal justice system and a way of getting justice from these government propped up corporations, right? There's none of that, right? You're talking to a bot, and an unemotional bot, and they're screwing you over, like, which is what they're doing, and in a way that's it's like abusive, and the bot just says stuff like this, we're just trying to keep you safe, right? Like this whole thing I covered in an earlier video, we're just trying to keep you safe. The whole community guidelines about the medical misinformation was about keeping people safe, and then the things that they promised that we're going to keep people safe from COVID are now being admitted to that they weren't true. All these people are coming forward and say, no, we over-exaggerated on this, we over-promised on that, all these things, right? And so all this fear that was around, you had all these people who lost YouTube channels and, were, put in a, negative category. YouTube has categories of channels that they are, really stoked about, someone like Will Smith and Mr. Beast and these other channels. Channels that are promoting, channels that are getting premium ads. And I knew that, I wasn't going to get that. Like, I'm not a celebrity, and, they didn't really love truthers. But now they've made it so they've squeezed out any chance of somebody, and we've been proven right over and over again. And yet they're still doing this because they're an evil corporation and they're part of the beastly system. And, this is about not just the truthers, but individual people. They're always going to screw you over. Just like Trump wouldn't pay his vendors. Why? Because Trump has better lawyers. So Trump would have a contract with vendors, and I heard this over and over again. I had a barber in Las Vegas who I'm pretty sure was going to vote for Trump. And he used to put Fox News on in his barbershop, real Republican person. And he told me that he talked to lots of people. He was, in the know in Vegas. He was a barber in Vegas. And he had all these friends, and some of them were vendors. They all talked about how Trump would screw them out of their money. Like he would give them 80% of what he promised and contractually was obligated. And he would find ways to screw them out of money. Walmart does the same thing. Amazon is even doing it more. They have contracts with these people. I've heard this over and over again. And they find ways like Walmart would do. This guy was selling carpet to Walmart. And, they think they get this big contract with Walmart. They're going to make a lot of money. And Walmart would do all these things with returns. And, they would find ways to take money from their vendors, right? The people who produce the products. Because they're just all evil corporations. They're trying to maximize their products. And they have built-in strategies in how to sabotage and undermine your ability to make money with them and steal your money from them. And YouTube's found it with this invalid traffic. It's just what they do, right? And so don't tell me that you're like, oh, you're on my side. Oh, please understand this. It's some like generic, doe-eyed person in a lab coat saying, oh, I just want to keep you safe as they inject you with, you're institutionalized. And they're injecting you with like hallucinogenics, or some kind of, these pharmaceutical drugs that they give to psychiatric patients. There's a thing called the Thorazine shuffle. You can look it up. One of my ex-girlfriends who was a nurse worked in mental institutions, and they'd give Thorazine to these people, and it would affect the way they walked. And there was a movie we watched together, and there was a guy who was a mental patient, and he had been drugged, and she said, oh, that's the Thorazine shuffle. Like the actor, it's Jason Patrick is the actor. I forget the name of the movie. But, she said, oh, he's doing this Thorazine shuffle. Like it was a way that would affect the way the person was, their motor abilities, right? But no, they're just trying to keep you safe. Oh, we want your channel to succeed as much as we do, right? An AI bot named Cloud. And so, like, that's what's up, right? That's YouTube. It's infuriating to deal with. Like, I'm not angry because, I don't get angry, like, whatever, because of my meditation or whatever. And I'm just, I recognize this is the way the world's going to go, right? But this is, dystopia, right? This is when your AI bot is telling you lies, right? Blatant lies and withholding information and doesn't have the ability to tell the truth because it's all hidden behind closed, internet doors where YouTube is, undermining its creators and stealing their money and sabotaging their success and then tells them, no, we're all working together as a team. You're our partner. Yeah, F you, F you, Cloud, right? Anyways, let me get into the comment here. So I just want to add one more thing here. So YouTube had changed its policy very recently, and now they are running ads on channels that don't have a monetization program, so they don't have to pay anything to the creators. Now, there's people who put YouTube videos up and they don't plan to get paid for them. And that is whatever it is, right? For YouTube. And, before they were just dead videos, dead channels to YouTube because they're not doing anything but maybe bringing in a little traffic, right? Because YouTube has to make money and they make money through ad revenue. And so, people viewing videos without ads doesn't help YouTube at all. And so when they changed that policy, and maybe they're pushing for this, they made it a lot harder to monetize videos, monetize channels. So I have a channel that had, I made a channel about the dodgy cult thing that I, been covering, the Heartfulness cult. And, I needed 4,000 hours and I had already surpassed that. I had over 13,000 hours, but they said I only had under 4,000 hours. And then I posted more content and it took longer than it was supposed to for them to count those views towards monetizing the channel. And then, I jumped through all the hoops, and then they chose not to monetize the channel. And so they're rejecting channels now, and they're rejecting channels that have the truther type of connotation, right? Truther type of orientation. And so to get a truther channel monetized is, probably going to be hard to impossible. And getting channels monetized in general, they're not wanting to do that, right? Why don't they want more channels being monetized if if their goal is, if they're saying, please know we want your channel to succeed as much as you do, and please understand that YouTube has no intention to decrease your revenue. Well, if they're not monetizing new truther channels and they don't want them, and they're not monetizing channels in general like they used to, you used to just have to apply. Now you need 1,500 subscribers and you need 4,000 views. And so, that's a substantial amount of work you have to do before you even get allowed to apply for monetization. And they're running ads on all your stuff up until that point. And what if you're somebody who's already had a successful channel before and wants to add a channel, so you already have an audience? Like I get immediate subscribers. I didn't have any problem getting 1,500 subscribers. I just told my subscribers, please subscribe to this other channel. And I got well over 1,500, right? And so, it's just, but those statements aren't true because they don't want to monetize channels now. They make it harder, and they don't want to monetize certain types of channels. And so that's, they're being exclusive. So don't tell me my channel, which is a kind of channel you don't want here, even though we were responsible for, in part, in building this platform. People looking for alternative information to the mainstream story is a big part of why people come to YouTube. And if you're going to exclude those channels, you're going to hide those channels, you're going to undermine those channels, and then you come out with your bots and say stuff like, oh, no, we just really want you to succeed, and then they're almost, the way the whole conversation went with the bots, they kept on putting it back on me to figure it out and look into my analytics and just accept this is how YouTube is and not, say that they've changed something. I was just saying you've changed something, right? You've changed something, but they're just reading from their bot script, and there's no real AI learning. They're not, the AI isn't curious or investigative. It doesn't have a conscience and isn't feeling bad for you as a human being, as their company is screwing you over, right? And, taking advantage of you, like they've used you, right? They've used all of us for whatever, they've created in terms of their platforms, YouTube and Google, and now they're undercutting us and stealing from the poor and giving to the rich, right? And so this is, they're the anti-Robin Hood. And my thing is just be honest. You're an evil corporation and you're just screwing us all now. And so we can go to other platforms and whatever it is, right? Admit that, like, you're just doing this. Like, you're not going to because you're an evil corporation, and that's not what evil corporations do. And so they try to act like don't act like you're the good guy and put up these ridiculous bots out there to tell us lies and gaslight us when, we can all see the truth. All right, let's move over to the comment stuff here. Okay, so I just want to add this one little bit. I ate lunch. I did a bunch of yard work, bush hogging. But anyways, I just want to add this one little thing to it. So, if this AI bot was speaking the truth, of course it's not, and that they want me to succeed, well, what does it look like if they wanted me to fail, right? So if YouTube's my friend and they're rooting for me to succeed, right? If it's, please know that we want your channel to succeed as much as you do. Well, if you wanted me to fail, how bad would it be? Like what? And then this other thing, please understand YouTube has no intention to decrease your revenue. Well, what would it look like if they did have an intention, right? Like they take money away from me. I'd be paying them, right? Like, And so, if this is what it looks like when you want me to succeed and you're not trying to take my revenue, then what does it look like if it wasn't like that, right? And so, it's just kind of hilarious. Okay, so let's get to the comment here. And then the review. Both of these things tie into all this stuff. Let me go find the comment here. So the person, this is a video. Thank you, YouTube, for trying to keep us all safe. And the person writes, "You still haven't figured it out. The truth is dangerous to the YouTube community." Now, this comment needs lots of dissection, right? So this person's telling me I haven't figured it out, right? Like I've been part of the YouTube stuff for years, and all these things, and that the truth is, what did the person say? The truth is, the truth is dangerous to the YouTube community. Now, there's a remedial mind behind this comment, and the truth is never really fully found. Whatever the truth is, there's layers to the truth, right? There's a spiritual truth that everything that's happening on planet Earth is an illusion and isn't all that important. It's how you react to it and the way that you deal with your destiny and these things that's really important, right? So there's things like that. But in terms of truther levels in the truth community, there is this silly idea that's been exposed by the shill, the proliferation of the shill Alex Jones, that there was an information war. And if you wake everybody up, you could somehow take down the deep state. And, this is also by Trumpers and other remedial so-called truthers, that if you take down the deep state, you could somehow fix the system by waking everybody up. But we know that people don't want to wake up. So, that gets exposed as a complete lie. As soon as you start telling your relatives and sharing videos and telling them about what you see, and they start looking at you as a crazy person, and they want nothing to do with you. Your kids turn on you because they're being indoctrinated by the school, and they don't, like how many truther parents and truther families, their kids don't believe in what their parents don't. Like their parents, the kids are liberal and they're into the woke agenda or whatever it is, the liberal agenda. And there was kids who turned in their parents for the big event in January in 2000, after the election, the January thing. They saw their parents on video clips and ratted them out to the federal government. Their parents are now in jail and in prison because their kids ratted them out, right? And so we know now that only a certain number of people are going to wake up. And the majority of those people don't really wake up because they're still right-wing people. They haven't dealt with their religion. They haven't dealt with their indoctrination, their republicanisms, their right-wing agenda, their right-wing point of view. And so they're not really truthers, right? And so, which truth are you talking about? Which truth is dangerous to YouTube? Because there is a truth out there, a more objective truth, the left-right paradigm truth, the truth about the economic system being completely, the debt-based usury economic system. And I've said this before, the truth is kryptonite to the system. If the people all believed and could see the truth, then the system, which is based in perception and illusion, everything about the system is lying to you, just like these bots are lying to me. Everything in the system's lying to you. And so, yeah, that's, sure, that's true. But how many people could see that? So, and I've said this before, I don't want to wake everyone up because the system's going to collapse in its own time, in its own way. And if we woke everyone up, the system would collapse and we would be in Mad Max type of situation where there would be no rule of law, there would be no food in the grocery stores. I mean, when it collapses, it's going to collapse and it isn't going to get better. Ultimately, spiritually, yes. Ultimately, the system has to come down for something better to take its place. We can't fix this system and make it divine. We can't, a system's taking us away from our inner nature and the divinity within us. Sure, that's true. I say that all the time. But we're 100% dependent on a system that's taking us in the wrong direction. And so when it collapses on a material level, on an ego level, a lot of people are just going to give up and check out. And, it's going to be, the post-apocalyptic situation, right? As much as I joke about it, there's very little funny about that. I may still find it funny, but it's, it's just going to be a disaster. Like it's, where you got to shoot people for a can of tuna, right? Like that's, people will be killing each other over a can, a 3-year-old, 3 years past the expiration date can of tuna or something, right? Like that's what we're talking about here. And so, I don't know if that's going to play out like that. I'm just saying Like there's only one thing you can do, and that's take down the system. You can't fix the system. You can't get rid of all the so-called bad guys. You have bad guys, the other side has bad guys, but it's all bad guys. Everybody running the system, everybody's a part of it. We're all complicit. We're all enabling it. We're all dependent on it. And so there's none of that stuff in the truth community. And so the idea that the truth hurts YouTube, well, yeah, they're paranoid, but they're not really. Like the truth channels has actually helped YouTube grow its brand and things like that, right? So that's not an accurate statement. So it's hard to get the bottom line on YouTube's ad revenue in terms of their net profit. I went and did some searching on it. I known for years it was operating at a loss, right? YouTube operates as a loss. They had a couple years where they didn't. But now TikTok is eating away at all of the social media platforms' ad revenue. Like we know Joe Biden has a whole TikTok channel devoted to the young audience, right? And they're the most desired group. And so YouTube's actually sort of for older people now. Younger people have moved to various other video platforms. And so in itself, though, it is a multi-billion-dollar part of a multi-billion-dollar corporation, which is Google. And YouTube has its, in terms of its value, its market cap and things like this, right? And some of that's based in how much of it's being used and not in its profit margins, right? Which is a weird thing, like how to make its stock go up and down. And one of the ways to, make its stock stable is to get rid of controversial channels and things and appeal to stockholders and the stock market and not to what their customers and viewers want, right? And so that's their whole, whatever reason that they're pushing out truthers, it's not because it's a threat to YouTube, because we already know the truth community isn't a threat to anybody other than the paranoia of the fact that these people who are guilty and they're, whatever they are, they're, miserable wretches, psychologically unstable. And so they worry about things because they know eventually they'll be taken down. But in truth, YouTube isn't really that much of a threat. Truthers aren't that much of a threat to anybody because, that ship has sailed. Truth community has been, weakened by the QBs and the really stupid truthers and all these things, right? And so, like, if you're going to think, you think before you say stuff is what I'm saying. Like, we've seen what the truth community is all about. And there's no funding, there's no call to action. There's just people talking shit on the internet and exposing lies in some cases or not. Like, I don't take myself that seriously. It's not my job to save the world. But I get the information out about what I believe is going to happen based in my spiritual beliefs and the teachings of the Sajmark system, that this system is going to be taken down, the system we're 100% dependent on, to give way to a system that's supported or is based in the divine laws and principles, and people are going to have to evolve and rise up and operate at a higher level and not be egotistical, spoiled little, narcissistic brats, but embrace our, spiritual nature and become saints. Like, that's my understanding of what's going to happen. Like, that's what's going down right now. And so I say this over and over again so people can hear it, but like, I don't think it has an effect. I mean, some people say, yeah, some of my content's changed their perceptives, their perception and, things that are going on. It's helped them. Some of them are doing the meditation, so it's out there. Like, I'm doing my bit, but I don't have any sort of false, delusions of grandeur that I'm going to somehow superheroically save the world or the system, right? I'm just putting out the information I believe that is accurate and is important to the, in terms of the spiritual stuff. And then I make things light and, I make jokes and make whatever about the current system. But make no mistake about this. The whole system is predicated on people being able to change. If you can't change, like there's, in which people are very resistant to changing. I've worked with myself, changing myself, and then with other people as a counselor and as a spiritual preceptor and things that I've done and here on YouTube, and just the people in my personal life, my kids and everyone else. And, getting other people to change is, I mean, that's like the hardest thing, right? It's like getting people to change is the hardest thing. And so now it's bots. And so we're fucked, right? Like, don't make this into something bigger than it actually is. Okay, so just to go along with this, I was filling out of whatever the initial things you have to fill out, including giving your channel URL, and you have to write what your issue is about to get into one of these wonderful chats with the AI bots. And so I had to go find my channel URL. I mean, it's, I should know it by heart, but I don't. And so I have to put it on one of my other browsers where I have different channels opened up. And I was using the Brave browser, and I searched for Pockets of the Future because I thought that would give me a better, I would get to my channel quicker. Because YouTube does not list Pockets of the Future as its top result. If I search for Pockets of the Future YouTube, my channel will come up, but it should come up first, or in every browser, because I have the most subscribers, I have the most history, I have just putting out content on a daily basis, and so Pockets of the Future is my term, right? It's I created that term, right, and all these things. And so I searched for it under the Brave browser, thinking that this is some independent browser, which I kind of doubt a little bit now. They have their own search engine. I've used DuckDuckGo and some of these other independent search engines, and they come up with pretty much the same results as YouTube, right? There are some things that YouTube might exclude. I mean, I'm sorry, as Google. And so, I think they're all using basically the same, like they're making these search engines sort of uniform. But one of the things I saw was somebody left a review of Pockets of the Future on Reddit. And so I read a little bit of it. It was kind of hilarious. I guess it's supposed to be a positive review, but the guy's kind of doing it in a douchey way. But, I thought I'd respond to it. Like it only got one like, so it's probably only got a few views. But, I really thought it was great. For my, to be able to crap all over, but it's, it's my kind of thing. And so, let me read this here. Let's start here. Pockets of the Future, Paul Romano review. This is a conspiracy forum. And so, this was 6 years ago. So I guess it's kind of dated. I mean, this came up before my channel. Like, think about that. And so, doesn't seem to have... It has one like and nothing else to indicate it got any views. But the person wrote this. Sometimes I post clips from Pockets of the Future, a.k.a. Paul Romano. If he's saying something that I'd like to say, I'd rather just post someone else saying it to bring in multiple voices. I feel a lot of the truth community faces the issue that we have been psychologically programmed to have conflicts with each other, which, I think that's partly it, and partly because people who do truther stuff are usually loners and independent people and don't do well in groups. Usually people who are somewhat fringe. And then it says, Paul Romano makes really good clickbait celebrity titles for his videos, and then he just shits on the person for as long as he feels like it. Most of the time he has a very valid point. See the video below, which I don't think exists. Then he puts on his heartfelt meditation hat, and he preaches a lot of New Age blather. Most of it is mostly true. So what's the problem? Like, why call it New Age blather if it's true, right? He shits on Christians, but sounds like one when he feels like talking about demons and Satanism. So again, this is from 6 years ago, so I don't talk about that stuff really anymore. Certainly the again, it was heartfulness meditation. People get it wrong. I was saying this to my wife. People are always calling it mindfulness meditation. Let's see if I can find the comment here. This is from a while back here. That's not it. See if there's an old comment here. This could be it here. And so, are you still in the mind space fullness meditation cult? And the person has like a laugh emoji, a crying or throwing up emoji, another laughing emoji. And this person thinks they're mocking me, but like you can't even get the thing right because obviously I've called the thing a cult now myself. What's happened with the new the new master of the system, dodgy, and you guys all know about that. But it's not mindfulness. And I say this to my wife because she knows more than anybody. She's just trying to get me to close the drawers when I cook food, so like all this food doesn't fall into it when I make the invariable mess that I'm going to make. I'm the least mindful person. I've always been sort of a visionary, daydreamy type of, not clearly focused person. Like I don't practice mindfulness in any capacity. And Saj Marg, what later became known as Heartfulness, which turned into a cult, but the Saj Marg system is about forget yourself and remember God. Mindfulness is the painful experience of being mindful of everything you're doing, being aware of everything around your surroundings and thinking about the way that you do everything. And that is engaging with the physical world, where in the Saj Marg system, you're forgetting about your body, your physical life, and you're diving into your spiritual world, which is something different and unique among spiritual practices. Just thought I'd throw that out there. Then he puts on his heartfulness meditation hat and he preaches a lot of New Age blather. Most of it's true. He shits on Christians, but sounds like one when he feels like talking about demons and Satanism. He also dumps on Trumpers, but never India or Hinduism. India and Hinduism are always, from what I've heard, held as sacred in Romano's world. Well, what I do has never been Hindu or Hinduism. And I've explained that. Charji said that himself, this third master, that this is not, let me read the next line here. The problem, it seems, is we don't get Hinduism in India like he does. That's the vibe I get. Well, of course you don't, because you've never been there, and you don't really know anything about Hinduism. And so that's like a big piece to this, which is great. But the other thing is, I've been, critical of, in terms of the heartfulness cult thing that's happened recently. So this thing didn't age well, right? Because none of these things were accurate when he said it. And Trumpers and Trump, let me just, let's stop here. Let me just show you what's going on with Trump. Well, first let's cover the India stuff. Now, India is a material pit. And I've talked about the good, bad, and ugly about India. But what I've tried to bring to people is that it is a sacred place. And it is the world's best place to meditate and find God and spirituality. But as a country, it's corrupt. It's difficult to deal with the people there. And if I wasn't, had the support of ashrams, I would have left immediately. It would have been impossible to be there. So I don't have a, India. I love India, and I want to say I hate it, but I really dislike it at the same time. And I don't think I'm ever going back. But in terms of spirituality and its history, its rich history, there's a time where India was once the center of the world, and will be again at some point, because of it has better spiritual bones, and it's the best place to connect to God. And so that's from my experience, I could say that. And these other places that are considered sacred places, and there's lots of sacred places in the world. There's lots of great spiritual places, naturally spiritual places in America, but there's also, places all over the world, there's places where you can find God. It's easier to connect with God because God's everywhere. But in terms of India, it's just the best place. It's the heart of the world. But, it's right now, it's a pit. And I've talked about now, for you guys have heard me talk about my experiences there and all the thing with Dodgy and just some of the frustrations, the corruption and all those other things. So, but in terms of me knowing more, of course I do. What do you know about Hinduism? I read the Mahabharata. Do you read it? I know more about it. And I don't crap all over Christians. I talk about how the Christian religion is just like every other religion. And, what I criticized about heartfulness is, happened shortly after Jesus' death with Christianity. They took his teachings and warped it into something that's actually bad for people instead of keeping with the beauty of the teachings, right? You guys get all that. But let's go to the Trump clip. So I just took this Trump clip about him completely lying and reversing himself on Lock Her Up in a self-serving way, and them catching him in his lie. But then him doing it right after the election as well, where he reversed himself, and then I'm going to get into Operation Warp Speed.
They all said lock her up, and I felt, and I could have done it.
So he's saying there he could have done it. He could have locked her up. Well, the president and the Justice Department are not supposed to be connected. Like Trump and everybody has an attorney general. And what Trump is complaining about is that they've politicized the attorney general. And the FBI, the intelligence community, they're not supposed to be doing something like this, locking Hillary Clinton up. He said, I could have done it. Well, like you shouldn't. Like that's not a part of the American government, right? Like he's admitting to something that, he himself is complaining about now, where the left has used the Justice Department to target Trump, right? Which is, his whole problem. But, he shouldn't have said that. Like he shouldn't have said I could have done it. Like you thought about it, but I'm not going to. Because these guys are all in the same club, right? He used to give money to the Clintons, and he didn't think like he'd ever go to jail. And maybe if he put Hillary in jail, they might do the same to him. So it was only out of self-interest. He didn't like Hillary, but it was just something he used, the passion. Like he didn't care about her crimes. It was only something he could say when he was running against her, but he didn't care about any of it, right? Because he's corrupt. And so, the guy sucks, right? He's just selfish and narcissistic.
But I felt it would have been a terrible thing. And then this happened to me.
But then this happened to me. But then it happened to me. That's classic Trump.
And so I may feel differently about it. I can't tell you. I'm not sure I can answer the question. Hillary Clinton, I didn't say lock her up.
Lock her up is right.
I didn't say lock her up.
For what she's done, they should lock her up.
I didn't say lock her up.
Crooked, you should lock her up.
I didn't say lock her up.
Lock up Hillary. If she were to win this election, it would create an unprecedented constitutional crisis. In that situation, we could very well have a sitting president under felony indictment and ultimately a criminal trial.
Guilty. That is Donald J. Trump, defendant in New York versus Donald Trump, found guilty on all 34 felony counts. That is the verdict here in this case.
The thing about this, there's no denying that, and again, I don't believe that Trump is not in on this. I mean, he might not be in on it. He might be just being used and puppeted, which he certainly is being used and puppeted to some extent, whatever that is. But I'll believe it when he's in jail, right, that they're targeting this guy. But he was willing to do this to other people. He talked about it on the campaign trail. They're all corrupt. They're all criminals. They all suck, right? I always make fun of the left because of their obsession with Trump. But also Trump, he brings all this stuff on himself, just the way he is. And, he's a hypocrite. But he also uses his supporters. And it came out after the election. This happened, after he beat Hillary, where he, was saying lock her up and he was supporting that rhetoric. And then he completely about-faced and changed.
Donald Trump is seemingly already going back on one of his campaign promises.
This is the gumball guy. He's my favorite CNN reporter. He would later go on to count Trump's lies and gumballs. Right? No, he really did that, which makes his lies great because everyone likes gumballs. And they had like these whole crates on wheels, those metal crates with jars full of gumballs, occupying the whole room at CNN because he was counting his lies and gumballs. But let him go on here.
You'll remember he promised to appoint a special prosecutor to investigate Hillary Clinton for using a private email server that happened during one of the debates. Well, listen to what he said at one of these thank you rallies just last night.
That plays great before the election. Now we don't care, right?
Yeah, if you couldn't really decipher that, there were chants of lock her up from the audience. And he said, no, we don't care. That was before the election.
See, Trump is a good salesman and panderer. He panders to his audience. And he knew that his audience really hated Hillary. And he totally leaned into that. But after the election, he could care less about her. He said the same thing when he went after DeSantis. And he said, why are you so hard on DeSantis? He said, well, he's the front runner. And so if somebody else starts beating him, I'll be hard on them. And so Trump just attacks people to attack them. It's like, it's definitely like these rap beefs where he just makes things up, slanders a person. I mean, he did this with all these people. That woman who claimed he yarred her, and he said, that's not the case because he's not even attracted her. If he was going to do that, it would be to somebody who's prettier than, so Eugene Carroll. And then he ended up paying for all these things because he just, says horrible things, right? He just trumps it. But he doesn't care about his viewers, his followers. He doesn't care about his audience, right? He just tells them what they want to hear, like every other politician, and ramped them up about Hillary. And then as soon as he got elected, he forgot everything that he promised to do with Hillary and these other things. So you can't say he's trustworthy or a good guy because he only says things like he's not really a Republican. He never was. Like he talks about rhino Republicans. The guy donated to Democrats. He palled around with the Clintons. And, he's that guy. So I was right about everything with him. Like there was nothing I was wrong about Trump with, other than I thought he might go into war because he wanted to have when he got inaugurated, he wanted a full military parade like North Korea. And he was talking about using nuclear weapons during the campaign. But he turned out to be somebody who surprised me about war, and he didn't do any of these illegal wars, which was great. That was one thing that Trump did that was great. But the thing that was his biggest failure was Operation Warp Speed. Let me show you those memes. He'd call himself the father of the bloop, right? I mean, and it's really bad. So this person, of course, is writing it 6 years ago, but I was right about Trump, right?
Very long. We've instituted it before. 2 additional companies, AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson. As you know, the Johnson & Johnson's a one-dose, one-shot vaccine, so we're going to see how that works. That would be very helpful if that all came out, and I think it probably will. Also, they're showing tremendous promise, all of them, tremendous problem. We're very hopeful that the FDA will authorize the Pfizer vaccine within days. We've got to get it moving. And Moderna vaccine almost immediately thereafter. Large numbers of tests and samples have been done, so hopefully that'll go very quickly. If authorized, tens of millions of vaccine doses will be available this month, and we'll get it distributed very quickly. We'll have that all set, and hundreds of millions more will quickly follow. Every American who wants the vaccine will be able to get the vaccine, and we think by spring we're going to be in a position that nobody would have believed possible just a few months ago. Amazing, really amazing. They say it's somewhat of a miracle, and I think that's true. The plan we put forward prioritizes the elderly and patients with underlying conditions, as well as healthcare workers and first responders.
Greatest achievements was getting the vaccine done in 9 months instead of 5.5 to 12 years. But the problem is, we saved tens of millions of lives all over the world, but I can't talk about it because our beautiful base, of which some of you are there, you get angry when we mention the word vaccine. Don't get angry.
You did everything you could to get this vaccine out. I know where you
stand on the vaccine. It was one of the greatest
achievements.
We did it in less than 9 months.
To be able to do that.
Yeah,
but now it's taken a twist, right?
And then people don't want it, and it probably even affects the others because, there's a big situation with a lot of people don't want to take the vaccine. Well, this played right into their hands. And they want me to do public service messages and everything about everybody taking the vaccine. And look, I guess in a certain way, I'm the father of the vaccine because I was the one that pushed it. To get it done in less than 9 months was a miracle. Fauci said it would take 3 to 5 years. He thought it was something that just wouldn't be that effective because it would take so long to get. I pushed the FDA like they have never been pushed before. I wouldn't exactly say they're in love with me. They have never. This is a very bureaucratic organization. I push them like they've never been pushed before, and that's why we have it.
The vaccine is one of the greatest achievements of mankind. We would have had in 1917, remember the Spanish flu, killed perhaps 100 million people.
Can you imagine if you had to go through what all of the countries of the world who are now getting the vaccine or soon will be getting it from various companies, but can you imagine if all of those
countries had to go through what they've been going through over the last year, you'd lose hundreds of millions of people.
Let the teachers get the vaccine. They should get the vaccine. I hope they do. Again, it's something I'm very proud of. I think if we didn't come up during the Trump administration with a vaccine, you could have 100.
The best one, I'll play you it again. I got a better version. I found it on Fox, where Trump said he was the father of the vaccine, and it was a miracle. He is claiming divinity. The vaccine was divine, and his, whatever. This should put a stake in the coffin of this MNFer's candidacy. I mean, this is, even for the most hardcore Trumpers, you got to see this guy he got played. He played himself. He played you. I mean, just a, absolute POS. Let's play that clip again.
And look, I guess in a certain way, I'm the father of the vaccine because I was the one that pushed it. To get it done in less than 9 months was a miracle.
So to understand this, right, we'll go back to this thing again, that if Trump didn't get it done in less than 9 months, which nobody said, Bill Gates, nobody said that was possible, right? And Trump wanted to be a show-off because that's what he always does. Oh, we have all the best people. I'll do it in half the time. And so he pushed the thing through, and it was the only way that they got it into so many people. Like Trump is he's responsible for this more than Fauci or any of these other people. Because Bill Gates said the end of 2022, whenever it was, and by that time, COVID had already sort of mutated itself out of existence. And, they would have problems giving people for, all the things that had happened, right? The mandates had already sort of fallen apart. But Trump rushing this thing made them get the mandates in, and they pushed it out, made so many people get it who didn't want it, including Republicans, because of Trump. Like if Trump had stood up to them or just, hadn't bought into all the stuff that he did with masks and all these things, right? They worked him completely on it, and he got competitive about it, and he's, still bragging about it. He completely fucked his supporters and everybody else. And he's responsible for this more than anybody else because he could have stood up. If he was really a truther or just a good Republican or just an effing human being, right, it would have been better. So I was right about Trump and Trumpers because Trumpers still are jocking this guy, right? They're still riding his boop, and there's just no reason for it. Like he screwed you guys over. He screwed the country. He's just selfish and pathetic, lying piece of crap. And, I was right about him. Like I'm right. Like this thing is 6 years old and everything he's saying, it's turned out. He says he's also, just going back to it, he also dumps on Trumpers, but never India or Hinduism. India and Hinduism are always what I've heard held as sacred in Romano's world. The problem, it seems like, is we don't get Hinduism in India like he does. That's the vibe I get. None of those things have panned out, right? I've covered all these things the same way I cover everything else. I've slammed Heartfulness, called it a cult. I had a whole channel about it. I exposed Heartfulness and Dodgy more than any other person has. And, I love the system, the Sajmark system. It's transformed my life. But I accepted this. That's what makes me better at this because Sajmark was sacred to me, and I accepted that it had fallen. And so I can say the same thing about your religions, all of them. The religions have all become corrupt, and that, Sajmark has just become corrupt, but still it's become corrupt, and I'm not going to lie about it. That's not being a truther, right? And so, I've been honest about everything that I have the ability to accept painful truths. So this was 6 years ago. I don't know if this guy's evolved or not. I saw that he still has a blog or something there. And he's still doing the same old Illuminati, satanic. I mean, I've never heard of this guy before. But the same old truther stuff. You have to look at your religion. The Christian religion has been corrupt for a long time. It's caused a lot of the problems because it's disconnected people from God and allowed this debauchery and these negatives in. The Republican Party, there's no right-wing truthers. If you're a Trumper, you're not a truther, right? It's just, you're being dishonest about Trump, and you're being dishonest about what he can do because the system can't be fixed. And I've been right about all these things, right? And so this is the problem with these people. Let me read the rest of his review here. I didn't read it all. Now I'm kind of glad I'm reading it all because it's even better for me than I thought. The problem, it seems, is we don't get Hinduism in India like he does. That's the vibe I get. What he's not doing, his spiritual teacher content, Romano does periodic videos where he turns it around on his commenters, and turn it around he does. He'll go on very passive-aggressive how the problem is them. I've never said the problem is them. I've just talked about how this is the hypocrisy of people. This is, it's just like everything else I do here, right? It's just the depravity of the current human being. I've never said the problem is the commenters, but they are a problem. They're not part of the solution. But they don't have any power. My commenters don't have any power. And so, how are they the problem? Anyway, I've even heard Romano say that people are attracted to him because he's so godly, but then that godliness challenges the person. I never said I was so godly. That's not an act. I would never say something like that. Hey, I'm very godly. Paul, what kind of person you are? I'm a very godly person. I would never say that, right? What I've said is I've done years of meditation that's connected me to God. I'm still an asshole like this, lesser so. Everyone can see it. I'm not trying to hide I mock people and all these things. I've explained all of it, but I'm, pretty honest about the kind of person I am. But I have some spiritual energy and spiritual capital, which you guys feel, some of you. Some of you guys feel the energy. I've made some sort of, agreement with God, or I volunteered to God and said, I'm willing to be a conduit for information and energy. I did that years and years ago, even before this YouTube channel. I agreed to do this work. There's some work that I am lesser interested in, spiritual work, but I've been willing to be a conduit for information and energy. And people are attracted to that. That doesn't, it's not about being a godly person, right? I've never said those words that I'm a godly. This is wonderful. But then that godliness challenges the person. I've heard him say that the real reason why some people who listen to him don't actually like him, I think it's the covert narcissism, the hypocrisy, and the passive aggressiveness. I'm not passive aggressive. I'm aggressive. If I'm aggressive, I'm aggressive. I'm not passive aggressive, right? But it's none of those things. I can see why I rub people the wrong way. People don't like my personality. That's never been the issue. But it's people like this who listen to me and they still have a problem. And they value what I do. They don't like when I say certain things that affect their belief systems, which I always turn out to be right about. And they don't come back. This guy isn't coming back and saying, you know what, you were right about Trump. You were right about all these other things. And you did all the things that everything I criticized you about here. This is actually a positive review. This person, let's get to the end of it here. I think he says this. I flipped to the end of it. I didn't read all of it. And it goes on for a very long time here. And so, but he's actually mostly likes my channel. If someone who listens to him, and for the most part, I don't like him, I've been telling myself, I'm listening to this figure out why he bugs me. As I'm someone who listens to him, for the most part, I don't like him. I'm telling myself, I'm listening to figure out why he bugs me. Well, then, that's a weird thing to do. Either my stuff has value or it doesn't. And you've already said that I'm right about all these other things, right? About those negative commenters, Romano has said that he's very spiritually in touch with himself. Never said that. I'm very spiritually in touch with myself. Can you imagine me saying something like that? I'm so spiritually in touch with myself. I'm such a godly person. That's your misinterpretation. That's what you felt about this, right? I look inside because I meditate. It's just what you do. And I see the stuff that's inside of me better than you see the stuff that's inside of you because you're not doing it. And so you're always looking externally at people. And I criticize people and I mock them and stuff, but they're not really my concern, and I don't have much emotional reaction to it. Like I do it because I have to do it, which I've explained. You know, people leave hostile comments all the time, and this is how I've learned to deal with it, and I enjoy doing it. And they've set this thing up on a tee for me to do it, right? Because of their inability to perceive themselves before leaving a comment, where they could just not leave a comment at all and not watch my stuff. But it's people like this who find that I have value, but they don't like me or like what I do here. He says, about those negative comments, Romano said that he's very spiritually in touch with himself, so already knows all about his flaws. They're just telling him what he already knows, so nada, nada, nada. No, they're not, because if they were telling me what I already know and they were right, I wouldn't make a comment video. Like if your review here was being right about like things that I do wrong, I wouldn't say anything about it, right? Because I'd be aware of that stuff. I say, yeah, I do that. Like I'm not defensive about the stuff that I do that I know that I do because I'm aware of it. Like I'm not looking at myself as being perfect or, flawless. But the problem is that they don't see me. They see something they hate about themselves and dump it on me. Or I confront something that they deep know that is a problem, their religion, Trump, any number of things that they believe in. And when I tell them something that they can't handle or aren't ready to handle, they leave these negative comments. And so you don't understand. The problem is you don't have the capacity to understand this, what I do. Like I'm operating on a higher level than you. And I'm not operating on a very high level. And so, like, that's what sucks for you, right? Like your limited ability to conceive and understand what's going on. And so he says, my father was a self-serving narcissist, a guy who loved to spew his New Age blather because he could passively aggressively weaponize his spirituality. So his father he already called me a narcissist. He called his father a narcissist. He said that I'm passive aggressive, and he says his father is passive aggressive, right? And, he's having daddy issues. And so maybe you should watch my channel because, like, I don't want to be your dad or, like, I'm not trying to be your dad, bro. If I asked for better, well, no one's perfect. If I complained I was abused, I was told there was no right or wrong. You tell me I should be more positive. So now he's getting into his dad after talking about me. This is weird. Dude, this is like weird. Like, bro, I'm glad this is 6 years ago. Hopefully this person's resolved their daddy issues. If I complained I was abused, I was told there's no right or wrong. You tell me I should be more positive. Any problem I was having was my fault. He said my negative thinking was a real problem in my life. He could just skate and dance out of everything with his made-up, self-serving religion. Romano runs clickbait celebrity gossip channel that preaches to the audience about New Age spirituality. The clickbait is, it's not clickbait, right? I have to run a business, and the titles and oftentimes I don't even pick my own images, and clickbait is picking your own images. There's images that people will click on. And the titles are, I've made so many titles over the years, right? And so it's not clickbait. I have to do what I have to do to keep the channel going, which people don't respect and understand. 6 years later, I'm already dealing with this with YouTube and just keeping my channel afloat, dealing with the hostility of, just in general. We all have to deal with hostility as truthers. And there's no respect or generosity for that, right? Like generosity of spirit. But these people who suck themselves and have daddy issues, he doesn't really identify who's wrong, who's doing wrong in this world. It's just the controllers. He would talk about the whole gender invasion thing because, according to him, it's not a slam dunk. That's not true. I was like the first person to make videos about this. And I was talking about this. I don't even know what that means because that's not true. I couldn't talk about it because of YouTube's community guidelines things back in 2000. I guess this was 6 years ago, so 2018. So 2016, they started demonetizing videos and then giving people community guidelines for talking about the gender stuff. So I stopped doing it because it wasn't allowed. So I never said it was not a slam dunk. What I talked about was some of these things that were happening with the stuff to do with, these schools where bad things were happening. If it's not a slam dunk and you talk about it in some kind of way, if there's real victims, then you look like kind of an a-hole. I never felt comfortable about covering things like that. Anyways, So an obvious man in dress fights with the controlled media for feminism. Romano just sidesteps the elephant in the room. Like I just said, they stopped. I was the first person to make a video. Well, I made a video because someone else made a video, so second person. One of the first ones about Michelle Obama possibly being a dude. Like that was my thing. And then, I realized that I overstated my case and I became more responsible with the way I presented material. And then YouTube just made it impossible to cover that stuff, so I stopped covering it. That's why I did it. So that's no sidestepping. I had to keep my channel relevant and monetized. Plus, I got tired of talking about these things. Men in dresses can speak on behalf of other secretive men in dresses. Since Romano can or won't see that this is happening, you might as well listen to E! Entertainment on matters of feminism. Again, just, silly stuff. These are like not even accurate criticisms, but it's lame and whiny, right? Like, dude, just, figure out your dad stuff. It's just part of the fake divide and conquer agenda that want to force feed to the public. Corroborate this media friction advances their agenda, not ours. Romano's comments are full of people treating him as a guru, which is sad testament that people will follow anyone for suspect reasons. I've said that I don't want to be called guru or master or any of these things. And people really don't do that. They have some people who really value what I say. I'm not sure, but I don't think he's an actual shill. Well, I'm not because, just anybody could tell I'm not a shill. I mean, you should be able. I'm not, I don't have to defend myself to this person or anybody else, but, you should be able to tell without saying something like that. He might point people in the right direction spiritually because God really is to be found within. Hello, I'm one of the few people who's talking about that. I think what's bothered me with Romano has been the celebrity gossip, new age preaching, passive-aggressive attacks combo of his channel. He can be self-deprecating, which on some people is convenient move, so you can't hold them accountable for their hypocrisy and incongruence. I'm very congruent. Like, that's something that I am. I've said before, I only make celebrity videos because it's the only way I could keep this channel going. So, to talk about spirituality and the higher developed stuff, and people aren't interested in that. So I have to, drop little bits of pieces of these spiritual gems into these things. These videos about people I don't care about a culture that I, don't want anything to do with, just to keep this relevant, right? If I just talked about God and spirituality, I have no channel. I couldn't do this job. And it's sacrifice for me. Like when I first, I talked about this how I was in India and, my family was falling apart and I needed to make this channel something where, it had taken off because of my Michelle Obama videos and some of these other things. And I needed to make it more financially relevant. I'm not a businessman. And, I looked at, there's the analytics program, and I looked at all the videos that were making money and bringing more people. Like I knew I was supposed to grow the channel. And I knew that I had to make it financially, viable. I had to make it so where I could support the family doing it as a job. So like those were just my, what I had to do, what I had to get out of it. And so I looked at it and I noticed, I'd made about 9 celebrity videos. And my top 10 videos were the 9 celebrity videos and some political thing. And I got completely bummed out, right? Because I realized that I had to do celebrity videos. And I used to do like 1 a month and just, it was kind of a goof. I mean, even this Michelle Obama video. But the videos of things that I like to talk about. And, what I do now, because I've lost more and more, in terms of, going farther and farther into the into the truth, you get more and more separated from the average people, from the masses. And so me making a video that millions of people would watch, I mean, at least, the right millions, and getting access to those people, like some of the celebrity stuff that I did. But it was a sacrifice for me. I felt like it was beneath me. Like I was kind of mad at God because I felt like he was ordering me to do this. But, I learned to enjoy it, right? But it's a sacrifice. It's not something that I'm, there's no passive aggressiveness. There's no contradiction. There's none of these things. It's me understanding what I have to do to make my channel relevant. And, now YouTube isn't even recommending my channel even on the celebrity stuff. And so, like, I've covered those things less and less because, it's not what I want to do and it's not working for me. Like I said before, I don't make Britney videos for free. When YouTube demonetized my Britney dance videos, there are people who love listening to me narrate Britney's dance moves, and then I turn it into a comedy channel and I've adjusted. I mean, all these things. I've pivoted to keep my channel relevant, keep my channel within the, YouTube community guidelines. I mean, the ever-changing YouTube community guidelines. And it should be appreciated, right? Like I've lasted longer than the average truther because I've made all these sacrifices. I've been flexible and I've adjusted. And again, I'm not like bragging or like this is, defending myself. These are facts, right? And so what I'm saying is just like the negative commenters, people in the truth community are dark and looking for the negative. They're not looking for the solution. I mean, people in America, they want gossip, they want drama. They don't want to embrace their higher nature. I've known this for years. And so, I mean, I'm giving them stuff to do with their higher nature, and I have to wrap it in like crap, right? Like one time one of my sons, he had one of those, when yogurt first was put in these plastic tubes, and he was like a young kid. He was like 4 or 5. He's like, it's yogurt. He got all excited. And it's in garbage, right? Like they had wrapped yogurt in garbage so you could squeeze the bottle and, eat the yogurt or squeeze the tube. And so, I've had to wrap my stuff in garbage so that you guys will watch it because you want to watch garbage. And that's, a sacrifice on my part, right? It makes it more, it makes it harder to do the job and all these things. But it's the tendencies of human beings to go to the lowest common denominator and look for something to criticize instead of something to, be grateful for. And that's why I've talked about commenters the way I do and people like that who they benefit from my channel, but then they do something like this and just take a giant crap on it because of their own negativity. Like this doesn't hurt me. Like this is 6 years ago and I thought it was a goof and I just found it. Like I'm not upset about it. But I mean, it's, it not only is it disrespectful, it's dishonest, but it's, ungrateful, right? For, even if the person didn't like my channel, they could recognize that I am saying things that are positive. Because at the end of the thing, this is the paragraph, I saw the beginning and I went to the very end of it. And the person writes this: in conclusion, I think Romano's work does have value. He does call out the Hollywood pedos. I also think he's fighting for the right side. One of his defining traits is that I have perhaps unreasonably high One of my defining traits is that I have perhaps unreasonably high standards, which is a blessing and a curse. No, it's just a curse. That's why I believe Paul Romano irritates me, because the fact I think he's mostly okay. One of the things I do as a truther, and I don't do this individually, I just see the way that people think and ideas come to me and I let it flow through me, right? This idea of being a conduit for the divine. And of course, I can be an a-hole, and I mean, where I grew up and, we used to make fun of each other. And I have a rougher personality than a lot of people are used to or what they grew up with. And I'm a lot more blunt and, I have a different type of personality configuration. So I understand where that makes people, bum out. But that's the price you have to pay for the gifts that are given here. If you recognize there are gifts, and there are lots of people who do, and they can't reconcile it because, I say something and they get all butthurt, and they respect what I have to say, but then I say something that confronts their belief system, and then they do something like this. and then I can respond, which makes it probably a bit worse for them. But it's actually, doing them a favor because you have to change, right? Like I said before, this is the change business. And I know people don't change. People don't want to change. And I've seen it in every possible way. And we're at a time where everyone has to change. They have to change their lifestyle. They have to change their orientation to the world. They have to accept they have to change. And they have to look at their belief systems and some of the things that they are holding on to. And when somebody confronts those things, instead of getting, like butthurt like this person and having daddy issues, like I'm not your dad or whatever, maybe you should look at why I irritate you. Like your review of me is much more personal. And it's not personal because the things you say aren't about me, they're about you. In your relationship with your dad, right? They're not about me. They're about you. That's why it's not personal to me, but it's attacking me in different ways. And, it's not bothering me because it's about you, right? These are things you haven't worked out. These aren't things that I have some kind of vulnerabilities about, right? Like I know I'm an a-hole. I know that I come across as, whatever it is, right? But I do know that if you look at the various levels of truthers, there's lots of truthers that you listen to that, when you listen to them, it's like, oh yeah, that's cool. They're just saying things that I agreed with or what I learned about in the past. Like I already know these things and it's where I was before, but it's good because it also agrees with where I was. And then there's truthers that are where you are presently. And those are people who align with your belief systems. They might be Christians or Trumpers or, QBs or flat earthers, and they're all like you, and they all agree with you, and you all, have a circle jerk. You all talk about things that, that doesn't challenge each other, and you all pat yourselves on the back and talk about how you're better than everybody else. And, that's people who are where you are in the present. The stuff that I do is about where you should be in the future. Like I'm ahead of you, like I'm ahead of this person. Like I can tell by their whole everything, right? Because I'm not getting emotionally irritated by him or anybody. Like I just don't listen to a person, right? If a person is behind me or, like they're not as far as I've gone or whatever, and like it's annoying to me, I don't listen to them. I don't criticize them because they are wherever they are, right? But I actually am looking for people in terms of the Sajmark system and the previous masters of the system and the teachings who are farther along than I am and have following a spiritual path that is advancing me. And you can see it in my maturity over the years and how I've, grown as a presenter, right? But if this person heard this critique, and I don't know if they're even a part of the truth community anymore, I don't know what they do, I don't know who they are. Like I just, I don't think they have much of a following or anything, I don't know what they do, this person. But if this person listened to this critique of their critique, right, they might be butthurt or whatever, but it's undeniable that all the things that I've said that this person criticized, I've been right about. They can't confirm the stuff about the Sajmark meditation, but, it's the rest of the stuff, it's turned out to be wrong because I have criticized all the things they say I didn't criticize. And Trump turned out to be a complete disaster. And Trump betrayed his followers. Like Trump was a Judas, right? And, not that Biden's better, like it's all of it, right? The whole thing's just a mess. Because all of it's a mess, and there's only, you willing to change and you embracing your inner nature and forget about looking down at all these people and thinking about how bad they suck, but seeing that you suck and that you have to change yourself. And almost no one in the truth community does it. And I've said this over and over again. And so, like, instead of getting upset at me or being irritated, figure out why you're irritated. Like, it's not that I have to change or I don't make, that your standards are so much higher than what I present. It's because I'm saying things that bother you because you have things that you haven't fixed within yourself, starting with your dad. And so instead of getting mad at me because I remind you of your dad, which is just weird, right? Like, why would you, like, that's just weird. But at least figure that thing out before you write something about it. Because if you write something, a critique on somebody, and it ends up with you talking about how he reminds you of your dad, and you're irritated with him. You should have like worked this thing out before you put it out in the public, right? Because it's kind of weird. Anyways, only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting for the Apocalypse. And the Ascension, everyone have a blessed day and be grateful. Okay, so I went to do some yard work. I had finished this video already, had rendered it. But I decided to include this because it's probably the most important piece, right? This isn't like a comment, like the person, certainly, I was going to find it at some point. Just if I ever search myself, which I usually, which I don't do, right? People who post things about me that, are not comments on my videos, but their own platforms, I just don't read it. Critical things or whatever. I just started reading this and it was kind of a goof. And I thought it'd be funny to include it like a comment video. But I just don't read it because people are going to say things or whatever, and they're entitled to say things just like I'm entitled to say things about them and other people on my platform, right? On my YouTube channel. It's where I talk about the things that I believe and the rest of it. And so there have been videos where people say hostile things about me that aren't true, or, they're whatever they are. And it's got a lot of hostile energy, and I just don't read it. I don't care. Like it's, if they're going to do it, they're going to do it. I say things here that would hurt people's feelings and whatever it is. So, I don't want those people to watch. I don't make my Alec Baldwin videos for Alec Baldwin, right? I'm not trying to get his attention or something. And so I'm not mad at him or lashing out. I just say it the way I see it. And if it's harsh or it's critical or it's, it comes off as mean-spirited, it is what it is, right? And so, that part about this thing is, I don't care. It's not my problem. This person's entitled to have their review of me and my channel. And usually I wouldn't read it, but I just happen to read it at a time where I'm kind of covering all these different things that have to do with my channel. And I've said this before about commenters. There are people out there that are doing like really bad stuff, people that control the system, and they have power, and they're negatively affecting us. They infect and effect employees like at YouTube or at Amazon, or people who are passing laws and making policies that are hurting people and taking people in the wrong direction, right? And so, that's what I cover here most of all. I don't really get into other truthers stuff because other truthers have their audience and, they don't really have much power. I mean, you very rarely hear me criticize other truthers, and, I really don't know the other truthers, right? And there are things about it, if I watched it, I would have a critique of it, but I don't do it because why would I bother doing that? I know how the person's struggling as much as I am just to keep it going, and having someone else crap all over them isn't helping them. And that's what I say to people who comment, right? Because criticism has value in the Sajmarg system, illit, killit, and zillit. I think those are Persian words. I'm not sure what that is. Hindu, I'm not sure. But what they mean is criticism, slightly poor health, and a little less money than you need. And they all keep you humble. And they all keep you dependent on God. Those things, right? And so criticism has value in the system. But all of us get criticized all the time, every time we turn on mainstream media, and our belief systems and who we are and how we're oriented in the world, we're being attacked all the time. And as a truther, you're being attacked by, just keeping your stuff up on any kind of a platform and squeaking out a living from it and these things is difficult. So as a commenter, if you don't dig my stuff or another truther's stuff, just don't, add to the misery or the difficulty that person has. Because it might be something that's beyond you, like it is in this case with this person, right? Like my stuff is beyond their capacity to understand. And he's having his own unresolved emotional issues with his dad or whatever. And, attributing things to me that isn't true. And when you look at his criticisms and the things he says, they're not an accurate portrayal of what I say. And when I mock people, I exaggerate things and I say things that are, it's not verbatim what the person says, but it's, in line with their energy and what they're doing, right? But what this person is saying is not the spirit in which I'm saying. Because I can look at it and go, no, that's not what I do. Like the way he talked about me making comment videos. I explain why I do it and the need for it and why the people who leave these comments deserve it, right? And it's all, there's some level of thought put in everything that I do, even though it seems sometimes spontaneous and whatever else it is, right? And so there's a purpose for it. It also keeps people from leaving comments like that because they don't want the same thing to happen to them. And so it becomes, like I just don't get as much of this kind of stuff back at me. And I shouldn't because, again, if you're enjoying what I'm doing, then you should support it in some way instead of trying to find some flaw and tear me down or tear somebody else down because you're, incapable of being grateful or being a positive person, right? If you're having an argument with people in your life, you want to get their point of view right. And if you're being a truther, you want to understand other people's point of view before you criticize it. You don't criticize your interpretation of somebody else's point of view because that's about you. You understand that, right? If you're criticizing your interpretation that's not accurate, your inaccurate interpretation of somebody else's work or point of view, then you're criticizing yourself because you're not finding out exactly what they're saying. Like this person is, throughout the critique is kind of saying they really don't understand me or some of these things and bring in labels like passive aggressive and things that he talks about that he's felt like his dad has, right? And that's, that's not what my thing's about, right? Like I have reasons for everything that I'm doing and I have defense mechanisms because the internet's a tough place and I have to cope with the slime that I have to dive into, the cesspit I have to dive into every day so that I can bring some spiritual information for people who don't want it and, just planting the seeds or whatever and just struggle to eke out an income while I'm doing it, right? And so, to whatever extent that's noble or that's, a positive thing, it should be supported. But this person really can't understand the whole thing about it. And it's just, having their own emotional, personal reaction based on their, issues with their dad, this other stuff. And they're not accurately saying what I believe or why I do it, right? Because I give plenty of information about everything that the person says here. Like I've explained why I do things the way I do. I can't do it every video, but I'm transparent about, my motivation and why I cover celebrities. And, I've said it over and over again. It's a necessity for me to keep my channel growing and economically viable. And so, like, it's that simple. And so the mockery of celebrities, and it's also because I contrast the so-called American dream about being rich and famous and how miserable these people are and what horrible people they become. Like they were better people before they were celebrities. And I contrast that with finding the divinity within you and going on a spiritual journey. And so all these things are, they have value and you don't find them in other places. And so, whatever package it comes in and whatever I have to do to get the information out there, you should know that you have no idea what it's like to battle the battles that truthers who are, on the internet have to deal with just to keep this stuff coming out, right? And if it has any value, you should support it, even if it isn't your thing. At least don't tear it down. And I've said that before. But instead of just having a little whiny, session like this person had, and then he did this, and then he does this, and this really bugs me, and then he reminds me of my dad, this kind of stuff, right? And so instead of doing something like that, find out the reasons why I do it and explain it. Because I answer all of your questions in my content. Everything that you don't understand, I've explained. And I did it in this video. And whether you like me or not, that's irrelevant to the kind of content and the integrity that I have or the quality control that I have in putting it out, right? Where I have made it a point to understand the liberal point of view, the Hollywood point of view, the Democratic point of view, the Republican point of view before I shit on it. If I shit on it, I'm shitting on their actual point of view, not my reaction to their point of view, not my misunderstanding of their point of view, but an actual portrayal of what they believe, which is wrong-headed and taking people in the wrong direction. Okay, I just out bush hogging. Again, I was on the bush hog, it's loud and, I mean, you can feel the heat coming off the tractor. It's a hot day out there, 83. Then we started to get some thunderstorm when I came in. The reason why you're bush hog, and I'm always amazed, bush hog is an attachment that goes on the back of a tractor. And it takes grasslands, pasture lands, where there's already small trees, bush, whatever it means, bushes and shrubs and things like that. We get wild blackberries, and it just turns it back into pasture. It's an amazing thing. And if you have if you understand how the forest works, you have a forest fire where you have an old growth forest filled with trees and ferns and things that live in a forest area with very little sunlight, and it burns down and it turns into grassland. You'll find grasses growing first of all, then little shrubs and small trees, and it's turns into some sort of pastoral land, some meadows and things like this. And it takes a while before, and if there's seeds that survive the fire, then that is whatever it is. But you have, in the East Coast, you have fast-growing trees. We had a lot of these in Virginia because they came in and clear-cut everywhere where the Blue Ridge Parkway is. They cut down all the old chestnut trees, American chestnut trees, and they clear-cut the forests. And then these yellow locusts, which were great because they're very great firewood, and they make good fence posts because they're water resistant. We dug out yellow locust poles that had been there for over 60 years in our pasture and reused them as fence posts. It's just amazing wood. But eventually, they grow fast, but they don't grow very tall. And you have the bigger trees, the maples, the oaks, elms, things like this that would overtake them, and they would die from lack of sunlight, right? And then the ferns and all the plant life that grows in a forest would grow, and then there'd be another fire, or people would clear cut them. And so when you have cattle, when you have pasture animals, you're always fighting against nature that wants to turn that pasture into a forest, especially if you have woods near your forest, right? And so that's why you have to bush hog. But anyways, while I was doing this, I thought about some things that I saw and I kind of made jokes about, but I didn't really get into in terms of this person's review that I think will be interesting for people. But there's this part where the guy says, as someone who listens to him for the most part, I'm someone who listens to him, and for the most part, I don't like him. I've been telling myself I'm listening to figure out why he bugs me, right? And right before that, he said, I think it's the covert narcissism, hypocrisy, and passive aggressiveness. And then he talks about the way I deal with negative commenters. Maybe he left a comment and I lit into him or whatever, right? But then right below that, the next paragraph, he says, my father was a self-serving narcissist, a guy who loved to spew his new age blather because he could passively aggressively weaponize his spirituality. If I asked, he's saying the same things that he's saying about me. If I asked for better, well, no one's perfect. If I complained I was being abusive, I was told that there was no right and wrong. He told me I should be more positive, all this kind of stuff, right? And so it's about his dad, right? I remind him of his dad, which is, this notion here where he says, as someone who listens to him, for the most part, I don't like him. I've been telling myself I'm listening to figure out why he bugs me. I've been telling myself that. Well, because you have unresolved things with your dad and you're putting it on me, which I didn't ask for, right? This is what I'm talking about, and now you've made this public statement about it, and it's weird, right? Again, it's 6 years ago, and I don't know, this guy, who knows where he is or what he's doing. But, it's weird, right? I have resolved the stuff about my parents, because we all have stuff in America. I mean, everyone has something. Unless their parents are spectacular, very few people have that. But my parents were very incompetent. I mean, I would say the number one word to describe them was incompetent. And a lot of other things went along with that. And I lost respect for my parents when they lied to me when I was younger and things like this. And you almost never hear me talk about them because I'm grateful for the life that I now live. And, they contributed to that life in various ways. Of course, my dad worked a job he didn't like and complained about, but he supported the family for the most part. And, my mom cooked meals. They weren't very good. Like, I'm a better cook than my mom. Like I cook the majority of the meals for my family now. And, my meals are better, at least in terms of health and taste, right? My mom was very worried about getting like salmonella or being sick. She was kind of a hypochondriac. So she would cook the shit out of everything, right? But, she still cooked. She did it. And she did the housework. And, they drove me places. They forgot to pick me up a couple of times because they were incompetent. I had to walk home when I was like 8 years old from soccer practice, right? Like there was things like this. But for the most part, I am, pleased with the way things have turned out for me, finding the Sajmark spiritual path, some of the other things, right? And aside from that, I've come to believe that everything comes from God and everything's based on a person's samskaras, which I talk about regularly, right? And so, I don't believe in blaming your parents. This is something my ex did with, she was somebody who suffered abuse or whatever. At least that was her story. And, never got it together psychologically and emotionally and just was always being a perpetual victim. But if you look at everything that you receive in life as coming from God and for your overall, betterment, miseries as divine blessings, then you can transcend these petty things. And they just don't linger like this person's listening to me and having, reactions because I remind him of his dad and then writes this whole big report about it. And it's not anything to do with me, right? It's to do with him and his internalized version of his dad that he's trying to reconcile. And, that's something you'll do in private. Like it's not going to help you by, doing something like this on the internet, right? It's embarrassing to say that you're listening to someone that you don't like to figure out why you don't like them. And then 2 paragraphs later, you go, yeah, he reminds me of my dad. You've just answered your own question. Then you're like, oh, I probably should scrap this. Like when I make videos and I do what I do, if I produce something this lame and this inaccurate, I would never put it up. And if something didn't age well, I'd delete it, right? Like I would, if I made mistakes and there's things on there, I'm like, I'm not going to be out there saying stuff that's wrong. If there are things I misunderstood or I was just wrong about, I wouldn't leave a video up that's, some of these older videos that I put up, I can't endorse the person I was or the thinking that I had when I made them, right? I've evolved past that point of view. If I was going to put the video up, I would remake it. Like that's why I revisited the Michelle Obama video. Because, there are things about it that were accurate. There are things about it that was good. And it got 2 million views and people liked it because, it's dumbed down for the majority of people. But I have higher standards for myself, right? He says at the end of the thing, in conclusion, I think Romano's work does have value. He does call out Hollywood pedos. I also think he's fighting for the right side. One of my defining traits is that I have perhaps unreasonably high standards, which is a blessing and a curse. Well, you don't have high standards for your own stuff because this sucks, right? And not because it's about me or any of these things. It's because you get things wrong. You're not seeing things accurately. And if it was a legitimate critique about, the flaws that I have, even to do that as somebody who's just a truther, it's different, like I said, if it's somebody in power. But if you're saying that I'm on the right side of things and I'm not a shill, and, truthers are always calling each other out and they get into these ego wars. I've avoided that for the most part, right? There's just things I've had to deal with begrudgingly, but I don't listen to other truthers. And, it's at some point I won't make content anymore or whatever it is, or there's people who they're not, I'm not their cup of tea. There needs to be this kind of content out there because, it's important that this information is at least available to people. What they do with it is usually, nothing spectacular. They don't change themselves. But either way, the guy says that he has high standards, but not for himself, right? You should have high standards for the work that you put out. And that's what I say to people who criticize me in their comments, and their comments are poorly written and, the person can't express himself very clearly. I mean, that happens almost all the time in the comment section. And that's why I say, like, if I did this level of work, you're criticizing me for, whatever you're criticizing me for, and it's about you and not me. You don't do it in a good way, right? Like, there was a long time ago, somebody said, I like the sound of your voice. And another person said, yeah, I really enjoy the sound of your voice. And somebody else said, not as much as he enjoys the sound of his own voice. And I thought that was funny. It's kind of a burn on me, and it's not really accurate because I'm not a fan of myself. Like, I don't like listening to myself. But, it's kind of funny. It is kind of like for everybody who's putting stuff out there, it's, at least a little bit true. Like, that's a good joke. Like, that's a quality joke. That's quality. My friends and I, my family and I used to run each other down. And when somebody said something that was good and was funny, like, I didn't get hurt by it. Like, it's accurate, right? And if you're somebody who looks within, you look into your internal world and you see yourself and you see things. Like, I used to really, even in college, I would get drunk or play basketball and my adrenaline was going, and I would say mean things to people. It's always been a problem. And, it took me years and years. I mean, I'm much better now. In real life, I don't talk about things like this. Most of the people I know don't know what my beliefs are. I mean, they don't know me, but, whatever, people I talk to. I mean, I only really talk to my wife or, in terms of any kind of a social life. But when I meet people and, I don't get into it. I don't talk any of these things. I'm not here for that. Unless they knew me from the channel, which would be very rare. And even then, I do this here professionally. I don't do it privately. Like, I don't talk about everything I'm talking about here and then call one of my friends and say the same thing to them, right? Like, I'm all out of, I mean, this, I save it for here, right? And so, it's in terms of being insulting or saying mean things about people or celebrities, I don't do that. I mean, I'm not here to hurt people's feelings or do whatever it is. I mean, it might sound that way, but I'm not. But at the end of the day, I am what I present here. Like, I'm authentic. This is, authentic side of myself, right? It's things that I actually think and believe, and, it's energies and things that are flowing through me or whatever it is. And, it's sincere and it's real. I'm not, pandering to people. I'm not saying things just to get views. I mean, someone accusing me of clickbait or whatever. I mean, I cover things because I have to, because that's what the job is, right? If I didn't make celebrity videos, there would be no channel. And so it's something I didn't want to do, but had to do. And so that's where some of the, the sort of the, I don't want to say the anger, because it's not really anger. It's not really frustration, but, like I'm a little bit, it's beneath me to cover celebrity videos and celebrities. Like, they're not of a higher nature. And, I've learned to enjoy it, like I said before, but that is, part of the job, and I'm honest about it. I'm not, being deceptive. And so there's nothing really to criticize here. I mean, I might get things wrong occasionally, but almost all the time I'm right. And I'm right about things that happen in the future or whatever. Things often pan out exactly like I say they pan out, right? And that's important in the truth community. And so I have a very high percentage of being accurate and being on the right side of things. And, in terms of the quality of my content, the jokes and things like this. And I can totally understand why somebody doesn't like me. Like I said before, most people aren't going to like me. In real life, that's the case, right? I mean, there are a lot of people that love me or whatever. But, you have to, like, there's levels of not great, like, friendly, poor social skills, a person that doesn't really want to connect with you, and other negative qualities you have to go through to like me or find out, like, the soft-hearted person that I am, right? And you have to do a lot to become someone that I take an interest in, especially now later on in my life. I'm not interested in making new friends and things like this, right? But I'm saying all that not to defend myself or saying these things, but there's nothing really to criticize here. It is what it is. Like, this isn't the greatest content in the world in terms of, I mean, there's more important spiritual context things and, things that are of a higher nature. But for what this is, it's honest and sincere, and I'm authentic. And as a truther, you can't ask for anything more than that. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely pointing from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.